When Carmen Hamilton sat down for what seemed like a simple TV interview, nobody expected what was about to happen. The cameras were rolling. 8 million people across Britain were watching. The interviewer asked her one innocent question about her son, Lewis Hamilton, the famous race car driver. That's when everything changed. Carmen's hands started shaking. Her lips trembled. She tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come out. Instead, something else came out. A sound so raw, so heartbreaking that the entire studio went silent. Tears streamed down her face. Her shoulders shook violently. She covered her face with her hands, sobbing uncontrollably on live television. The interviewer looked horrified. The audience sat frozen. Millions of viewers at home leaned forward, shocked by what they were seeing. This wasn't supposed to happen. This was supposed to be a happy interview about her famous son's amazing career. But Carmen was breaking. Right there in front of everyone, she was completely falling apart. Nobody knew what to do. Should they stop filming? Cut to commercial. The producers were panicking, and that's when Lewis Hamilton burst onto the stage. He wasn't supposed to be there yet. His entrance was planned for 10 minutes later, but he'd heard his mother crying backstage and nothing else mattered anymore. What happened next shocked the entire world. Lewis dropped to his knees in front of his mother, took her hands, and then he said 3 simple words that would change everything. 3 words that made millions of people cry. 3 words that revealed a truth nobody expected. But before we get to that moment, you need to understand the story behind Carmen's tears, because this isn't just about one emotional moment on TV. This is about 20 years of silent sacrifice. 20 years of a mother's heartbreak that nobody saw. 20 years of choices that slowly broke her heart, literally. You see, Carmen Hamilton has a medical condition called broken heart syndrome. Her heart is actually damaged from years of emotional stress. And the reason why will make you see success in a completely different way. This story starts with a 7-year-old boy who had an impossible dream. A boy who slept every night holding a toy race car. A boy whose mother was so poor she could barely afford food. But she saw something special in her son. And she made a decision that would change both their lives forever. She decided to sacrifice everything so her son could chase his dream. Everything. What Lewis's mother did in secret, the jobs she worked, the things she sold, the pain she hid, will break your heart. But what Lewis did when he finally discovered the truth, that's what melted millions of hearts around the world. Stay with me through this whole story because what you're about to discover will change how you think about success, family, and what really matters in life. And trust me, you need to see what Lewis Hamilton announced on live TV that day. Nobody saw it coming. Not the interviewer, not the audience, not even his own racing team. By the end of this story, you'll understand why sometimes the bravest thing a champion can do has nothing to do with winning. Let me take you back to where it all began. Back to a small apartment in England, where a single mother and her 7-year-old son were about to start a journey that would lead to that unforgettable moment on live television. The red light on camera 3 blinked steadily. In the BBC studio at Silverstone Circuit, 8 million people across Britain sat down with their Saturday morning tea, ready to watch another pre-race interview. Nobody expected what was about to happen. Carmen Hamilton smoothed her navy blue dress for the 3rd time. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. At 58 years old, she'd learned to hide her nervousness well, but today was different. Today, something felt heavy in her chest, heavier than usual. 30 seconds, Mrs. Hamilton, the young producer said, adjusting her microphone. Just be yourself. Britain loves you. Carmen smiled politely, but her mind was elsewhere. She glanced toward the backstage area where her son, Lewis, was supposed to be waiting. He'd asked her to do this interview, promised her it would be special. But right now, all she felt was exposed. The studio lights blazed hot against her skin. The interviewer, a kind-faced woman named Rebecca Chen, settled into her chair across from Carmen. Rebecca had interviewed hundreds of sports personalities, but there was something different about this assignment. The producers had been unusually secretive about today's show. And we're live in 5, 4, 3. The stage manager's voice faded as his fingers counted down the final seconds. Rebecca's professional smile appeared instantly. Good morning, Britain. We have someone very special with us today. She's not a racing driver, not a celebrity, but without her, one of Britain's greatest champions would never have existed. Please welcome Carmen Hamilton, mother of 7-time Formula One world champion, Lewis Hamilton. The studio audience applauded warmly. Carmen waved, feeling her heart pound against her ribs. "Carmen, thank you for joining us," Rebecca began. "We know you usually prefer to stay out of the spotlight." "I do," Carmen said softly. Her Caribbean accent, still strong after decades in England, made her words sound musical. "But Louis asked me to be here today, and I've never been able to say no to that boy." The audience laughed. Rebecca leaned forward, her eyes twinkling. "Before we bring Louis out, we have something special planned. We've spent the past month gathering messages from people whose lives you've touched." Carmen's eyes widened. "Oh, I'm not." "Just watch," Rebecca said gently. The studio screens flickered to life. A woman in nurse's scrubs appeared, her eyes already misty. "Mrs. Hamilton, you probably don't remember me, but I was your student nurse in 2003. I was ready to quit because I thought I wasn't good enough. You sat with me during your break and told me that caring hearts are more important than perfect skills. I'm a head nurse now because of you." Carmen's hand flew to her mouth. Another face appeared, a teenage boy with bright eyes. "Mrs. Hamilton, you helped my mum when she was sick. You brought us groceries when we had nothing. You didn't even know us, but you cared. I'm in university now studying medicine because of what you showed me about kindness." One after another, the messages played. A neighbor, a former patient, a woman from her church, each one sharing how Carmen had quietly changed their lives with small acts of love that she'd never thought twice about. Tears streamed down Carmen's face. The studio audience was crying too. "Carmen," Rebecca said, her own voice thick with emotion, "the world knows Louis Hamilton the champion, but we wanted Britain to know Carmen Hamilton the hero, the woman who raised a legend while being one herself." Carmen dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. I just did what any mother would do, what any person should do." "That's what makes you remarkable," Rebecca said. "You don't see it." The audience applauded again, longer this time standing. Carmen stood slightly, acknowledging them, feeling overwhelmed and loved and somehow still incomplete. Rebecca waited for the applause to fade. Then she asked the question that changed everything. "Carmen, Louis has accomplished everything in racing. 7 world championships, over 100 race wins. He's broken records that people said would never be broken. He's secured his legacy forever." Rebecca paused, her expression warm and curious. "What's the one dream you still have for him? What's the one thing left that would make your heart completely full?" The question hung in the air. Carmen opened her mouth to answer. She prepared something gracious to say, something about hoping Louis stays healthy and happy, something safe and predictable. But suddenly, something inside her cracked. Maybe it was the video messages reminding her of all the people she'd helped while slowly losing touch with her own son. Maybe it was the medication she'd been taking for her heart condition, making her emotions closer to the surface. Maybe it was the exhausting weight of 20 years of smiling through loneliness. Or maybe it was just the truth finally demanding to be spoken. Her lips trembled, her breath caught. The words that wanted to come out weren't the gracious ones. They were the real ones, the desperate ones, the ones she'd been swallowing down for years. "I want my son back. I want him to stop chasing records and start living life. I want him to visit without checking his watch. I want him to call just to talk, not because it's Mother's Day. I want him here, really here, before it's too late, before my heart gives out, before I die having spent his entire adult life watching him from a distance, proud but so painfully alone." All of this rose up in her throat at once. 20 years of unsaid words. 20 years of hidden heartbreak. 20 years of being the strong mother who never complained, never demanded, never made her sacrificing worthwhile by asking for anything back. Carmen tried to force the words down. She tried to smile. She tried to be the gracious woman everyone expected, but her body betrayed her. A sob broke from her lips, sharp, raw, animal. Her hands flew to her face. Her shoulders shook violently. The tissue fell from her fingers to the studio floor. I can't," she gasped. "I'm sorry." The studio went completely silent. 8 million viewers leaned forward in their living rooms. The camera operators didn't know whether to cut away or keep filming. Rebecca Chen reached for Carmen's hand, her professional composure cracking. "Mrs. Hamilton, we can stop," Rebecca began. "Wait." The voice came from backstage, firm, urgent, filled with panic and love. Heavy footsteps echoed across the studio floor. The audience gasped. Rebecca turned, her eyes widening. Lewis Hamilton burst onto the set still wearing his racing team jacket, his headset mic dangling around his neck. He wasn't supposed to appear for another 10 minutes. The producers had a whole elaborate entrance planned, but none of that mattered now. Lewis had heard his mother cry. And nothing, not timing, not television schedules, not professionalism, not the 8 million people watching, mattered more than getting to her. Their eyes met across the studio. In that moment, everything else disappeared. The cameras, the lights, the millions watching. All of it faded into nothing as Lewis crossed the studio in 4 long strides and dropped to his knees beside his mother's chair. "Mum," he whispered, taking her trembling hands in his. "Mum, I'm here." Carmen couldn't speak. She could only stare at her son through tears, watching his face blur and sharpen as emotions crashed through her like waves. Lewis's own eyes were wet, his jaw tight with the effort of holding himself together. Rebecca Chen silently gestured to the cameras to keep rolling. Every instinct told her this moment was too private for television, but another instinct, the one that recognized rare, profound truth, told her the world needed to see this. "We're going to take a short break," Rebecca announced softly to the audience. "Please stay with us." As the studio cut to commercial, Lewis pulled his mother into his arms. Carmen collapsed against his chest, her sobs muffled against his jacket. He held her the way she used to hold him, tight, protective, as if his embrace alone could shield her from everything that hurt. "I've got you," Lewis murmured into her hair. "I've got you, Mum. Just breathe." The studio crew pretended to busy themselves with equipment, giving them privacy. But several wiped at their own eyes. There was something about watching a grown man, a world champion, a celebrity, an icon, reduced to the most basic human truth, a son comforting his mother. After what felt like both seconds and hours, Carmen pulled back slightly. She cupped Lewis's face in her hands, studying him as if seeing him for the first time in years. In some ways, she was. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean to. I didn't want to embarrass you on television." Lewis shook his head firmly. "Mum, no, don't apologize. Don't ever apologize for being real." "But all those people watching." "Let them watch," Lewis said, his voice fierce with love. "Let the whole world watch, I don't care." Rebecca appeared at their side, crouching down. "Mrs. Hamilton, we don't have to continue. We can end the show right now if you need." "No," Carmen said, surprising herself. She straightened up, wiping her eyes with fresh tissues someone handed her. "No, I want to continue. I want to. I need to." She looked at Lewis. "There are things I need to say, things I should have said years ago." Lewis squeezed her hand. "Then say them. I'm listening. I'm finally listening." But to understand why that moment broke Carmen so completely, we have to go back. Back to before the championships and the fame. Back to when Lewis was just a boy with impossible dreams and a mother who would do anything to help him reach them. Stevenage, England, summer 1995. The apartment on the 3rd floor of the council estate had 2 bedrooms, a tiny kitchen, and windows that rattled when the wind blew hard. 7-year-old Lewis Hamilton shared the smaller bedroom with more dreams than the space could hold. He'd covered every inch of his walls with pictures cut from racing magazines. Ayrton Senna, Michael Schumacher, Nigel Mansell. His bed was surrounded by cardboard boxes that he'd drawn on with markers, transforming them into racetracks with elaborate turns and straightaways. "Lewis, dinner," Carmen called from the kitchen. "One more lap, Mum," Lewis shouted back, making engine noises as he guided his favorite toy car, a red Ferrari his father had given him, around the cardboard Monaco circuit he'd created. Carmen appeared in his doorway, her nurse's uniform still on from her shift at the hospital. She was exhausted, 12 hours on her feet studying for her nursing certification exam during her lunch break, and now home to a sink full of dishes and a son who lived in a racing fantasy world. But when she saw Lewis's face, lit up with pure joy as he raced his toy car, her exhaustion melted into something else. Love mixed with fear, pride mixed with worry, because she knew that look. That look meant Lewis wasn't just playing. He was planning, dreaming, believing. "Come on, champion," she said gently. "Your dinner's getting cold." Lewis jumped up, still clutching his toy car. At the small kitchen table, Carmen had laid out their meal, beans on toast with a fried egg each. It was the 3rd time they'd eaten it this week. Money was tighter than Lewis understood. "Mum, guess what happened at school today?" Lewis said, attacking his dinner with 7-year-old enthusiasm. "What happened, baby?" Mr. Peterson asked what we wanted to be when we grow up. Tommy said footballer. Jessica said teacher. But I said Formula One driver. Lewis's eyes sparkled. Everyone laughed. Even Mr. Peterson smiled like I said something funny. Carmen's hand tightened on her fork. Did that hurt your feelings? Lewis shrugged, but she could see it had. I don't care if they laugh. I'm going to do it anyway, just like Senna did. Yes, you will, Carmen said firmly. You know why? Why? Because you have something they don't have. You have belief, and belief is stronger than anything. Lewis grinned, then his face turned serious. Mom, Dad said he's going to take me karting next month. He saved up enough for a few sessions. Carmen's smile tightened. Anthony, her ex-husband, was trying hard with Lewis. She was grateful for that, but she also knew what karting cost. She knew Anthony was working 2 jobs to afford it. She knew that if Lewis showed real talent, the costs would become impossible. That's wonderful, baby. Your dad loves you very much. Do you think I'll be good at it? Lewis asked, suddenly vulnerable. Real racing, not just toys. Carmen reached across the table and took his small hand. Lewis Anthony Hamilton, I think you're going to be extraordinary. But more importantly, I know you'll work harder than anyone else. That's what makes champions, not just talent but heart. That night, after Lewis fell asleep with his toy car clutched against his chest, Carmen sat at the kitchen table with a calculator and a pile of bills. The numbers didn't add up. They never did. Her nursing program tuition was due. The rent was overdue. The electricity bill had a red warning stamp on it. And now Lewis would need proper racing equipment if he showed promise at karting. Carmen looked at the small jewelry box on the shelf, the one containing her mother's pearl necklace, the only valuable thing she owned. Her mother had given it to her before she died, made her promise to keep it always. I'm sorry, Mama, Carmen whispered, but my boy has a gift, and I can't let the world take it from him just because we don't have money. She opened the jewelry box and pulled out the necklace. The pearls caught the dim light, each one representing a memory of her mother. Her throat tightened. A mother's love means sacrifice, her own mother had always said. Now Carmen understood what that truly meant. 1 month later. Mom, did you see? Lewis burst through the apartment door, his face flushed with excitement. Anthony followed behind, grinning wider than Carmen had seen in years. He was incredible, Carmen, Anthony said. Natural talent. The instructor said he's never seen a 7-year-old with that kind of control. Lewis bounced up and down. I came in 2nd place, in my first real race, and the man said if I practice, I could be really, really good. Carmen pulled Lewis into her arms, feeling her heart swell and break simultaneously. She was so proud, so terrified, because she knew what this meant. This wasn't just a hobby anymore. This was Lewis's destiny calling, and she would answer that call no matter what it cost her. I'm so proud of you, baby, she whispered into his hair. So incredibly proud. That night, Lewis fell asleep talking about racing lines and apex turns. Carmen sat beside his bed, watching him dream. On his nightstand sat a small trophy, his first one for 2nd place. She traced her fingers over it, then looked at her own empty jewelry box on her dresser. Worth it, she told herself. Every sacrifice will be worth it. She didn't know then that she'd spend the next 20 years proving that promise true. She didn't know how many more sacrifices were coming. How many nights she'd cry alone. How many times she'd choose his dreams over her own needs. All she knew was that her son had a gift, and she would do anything to help him share it with the world, even if it meant losing him in the process. Stevenage, England, winter 1998. 10-year-old Lewis stood in the doorway between his parents, a small duffel bag at his feet. The December cold crept through the open door, but nobody moved to close it. This moment needed to breathe. You understand why this is best, right, baby? Carmen knelt down, eye level with her son. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled as she adjusted his jacket collar for the 3rd time. Lewis nodded, but his eyes were red. I'll live with Dad during the week for racing. But I'll visit you every weekend, right, Mom? Every single weekend, Carmen promised, though they both knew racing schedules wouldn't always allow it. And you can call me anytime, morning, noon, or night. I'm always here. Anthony cleared his throat. Carmen, I'll take good care of him, you know that. I know, Carmen stood, blinking rapidly. He needs this opportunity, the racing academy, the training. You can give him things I can't right now." What she didn't say, "It's killing me. Watching you walk out that door is killing me." Louis suddenly threw his arms around his mother's waist, burying his face in her stomach. "I don't want to leave you alone, Mom." Carmen's composure cracked. She held him tight, breathing in the smell of his hair, that little boy mixture of shampoo and playground dirt. How many more times would she get to hold him like this? "I won't be alone," she lied. "I have my nursing job, my friends at church, and I have you in my heart every single second. That never changes, no matter where you sleep at night." "I'm going to make you proud," Louis whispered. "I'm going to win races and buy you a big house and—" "Louis, stop." Carmen pulled back, cupping his face in her hands. "You already make me proud. You could never race another day in your life and I'd still be the proudest mother in England. Do you understand me? But the sacrifices are mine to make, not yours to carry." Carmen smiled through her tears. "Your only job is to be happy and work hard. That's it. The rest is between me and God." Anthony gently touched Louis's shoulder. "Come on, son. We should go before the traffic gets bad." Louis picked up his bag. At the door, he turned back one more time. "I love you, Mum. I love you more than all the stars, baby. Always." Carmen stood in the doorway long after Anthony's car disappeared down the street. The apartment behind her was silent. No toy cars, no racing magazines, no small voice calling Mum from the bedroom, just silence. She closed the door and slid down against it, finally allowing herself to break. 6 months later. Carmen's alarm clock read 4:47 a.m. She'd been awake since 3:30, unable to sleep. Again, she worked her regular morning shift at the hospital from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. Then she rushed to her second job, cleaning offices in the business district from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. 3 nights a week, she had a third job doing medical transcription from home until midnight. The money from her mother's necklace had lasted only 4 months. Louis's racing equipment was expensive. Entry fees for competitions were expensive. The specialized training Anthony was providing was necessary, but it couldn't cover everything. So Carmen worked and worked and worked. She stumbled to the kitchen, her body aching from yesterday's shifts. On the refrigerator hung a photo of Louis at his latest race, holding a trophy, grinning. She touched his face with her fingertip. "Good morning, baby," she whispered to the photo. It was their ritual. Every morning before the world woke up, she had these few minutes with him. Her phone buzzed. A text from Anthony. "Louis won his qualifying heat yesterday. Wanted to call you, but it was late. He's asking for you." Carmen's chest tightened. She'd missed another race. The weekend shift at the hospital had been mandatory. They were short-staffed and she couldn't risk losing the job. She typed back, "Tell him I'm so proud. I'll call him during my lunch break." But she knew that during her lunch break, Louis would be in school. And after school, he'd be training. And by the time training ended, she'd be at her cleaning job with her phone locked in her locker. They were missing each other constantly, passing like ships in the night. Autumn 1999. "Carmen, you need to see a doctor." Her friend Marcia, another nurse at the hospital, cornered her in the break room. "You've lost weight. You're exhausted all the time. This isn't healthy." Carmen waved her off, gulping down instant coffee. "I'm fine, just busy." "Busy killing yourself." Marcia sat down, her voice softening. "I know what you're doing. Everyone knows. You're working yourself to death for that boy's racing." "He's gifted, Marcia, truly gifted. I can't let money be the reason his dreams die." "But what good is his success if you're not alive to see it?" Carmen's hand froze on her coffee cup. She'd thought the same thing in her darkest moments, but she always pushed it away. "I'll rest when he makes it, when he's established, when the sponsorships come. Then I can slow down. And if that takes 10 years, 20. Carmen didn't answer because she didn't have an answer. That night she worked on medical transcription until 1 a.m. Her eyes burned, her back screamed. Her bank account had exactly £40.07 until next Friday's paycheck. Louis had called earlier, she'd missed it. His voicemail said, "Hi Mum, just wanted to hear your voice. Dad says I might get to race in France next month. Isn't that amazing? I wish you could come. Love you." Carmen played the message 3 times, closing her eyes, imagining his face. France. He was racing in France. Her 10-year-old son was already going international. She was so proud she could burst. She was so heartbroken she could shatter. December 1999. Christmas morning. Carmen sat alone in her apartment, surrounded by decorations she put up for no one but herself. Louis was with Anthony's family. They'd invited her, but the train ticket cost money she didn't have. Money that needed to go toward Louis's new racing suit. Her phone rang at 8 a.m. Louis's excited voice filled her ear. "Mom, Merry Christmas, I got a new helmet. It's so cool, it's got." Carmen listened to every word, smiling, responding enthusiastically, her heart breaking with every syllable. After 15 minutes, Anthony took the phone. "Carmen, are you all right? You sound tired." "I'm perfect. Thank you for making his Christmas special." "You're the one making everything special. You know that, right?" Anthony's voice was gentle. "The money you send. I know what you're doing. I know you're working multiple jobs." "He's worth it." "You're a good mother, the best." Anthony paused. "Better than I deserve, honestly, after everything." "Ancient history," Carmen interrupted. "We're doing this together now. That's what matters." After they hung up, Carmen sat staring at her small Christmas tree. Under it was one gift, a framed photo of Louis she'd bought for herself. She opened it, looking at his gap-toothed smile. "Merry Christmas, baby," she whispered. "I hope you're happy. That's all I want, just your happiness." Spring 2000. Carmen stood behind the chain-link fence at the karting track, camera in hand. She'd gotten the weekend off by trading shifts with 3 different nurses. She'd taken the cheapest bus route, which took 5 hours instead of 2. She'd packed sandwiches so she wouldn't have to buy food at the track. But she was here, finally here. Louis didn't know she'd come. She'd told him she couldn't make it. Better he wasn't disappointed if something went wrong. When his card appeared on the track, Carmen's breath caught. He looked so small in the helmet and suit, so young. But the way he drove, aggressive, confident, brilliant, showed he was born for this. He passed 3 competitors in one lap. The other parents in the pit area cheered. Carmen cheered too, tears streaming down her face behind her sunglasses. Louis won the race. As he stood on the podium holding his trophy, he looked into the crowd. Carmen stayed hidden behind the fence, filming everything. This was enough, seeing him succeed even from a distance. Even if he never knew she was there. Later, she would watch the video over and over, studying his face, memorizing his joy. She would carry that image through the next week's exhausting shifts, through the loneliness, through the moments when she questioned everything. Because that face, that pure, blazing joy, made every sacrifice worth it. Even the sacrifice of being close to him. Even the sacrifice of being part of his daily life. Even the sacrifice of him needing her. Carmen tucked the camera into her bag and slipped away before Louis could see her. She had a bus to catch, a shift to work tomorrow, bills to pay. She was losing her son one racing trophy at a time, but she was giving him the world. And somehow she had to believe that was enough. Even though deep in her breaking heart, she knew it wasn't. Stevenage, England, spring 2003. Carmen sat by the phone at 7 p.m. like she did every Thursday. Louis usually called around this time between his training session and dinner. Usually, the phone stayed silent. At 7:30, she told herself he was just running late. At 8:00, she convinced herself he'd forgotten. By 8:30, she was staring at the phone, willing it to ring. It didn't. She picked up the receiver to check if it was working. The dial tone hummed, steady and mocking. The phone was fine. Louis simply hadn't called. Carmen set the receiver down carefully as if it might shatter. She wouldn't call him. She'd promised herself years ago that she wouldn't be the mother who demanded attention, who made her son feel guilty for living his life. But God, it hurt. At 15, Louis was racing in Formula Renault now. Real racing circuits, real competition. His talent had attracted attention, sponsors, managers, racing teams. Anthony said people were calling Louis the future of British motorsport. Carmen was proud, terribly, achingly proud. She was also terribly, achingly alone. On her refrigerator, beneath the racing photos and trophy pictures, was a calendar. She'd marked every phone call from Louis with a small star. In January, there were 12 stars, in February 9, in March 6. It was now April 17th. 2 stars so far. Carmen knew why. She wasn't stupid. Louis was busy, training 6 days a week, studying with tutors, traveling to races, meeting with sponsors. He was building a career. He was becoming someone. He just wasn't becoming someone who needed his mother anymore. She walked to her bedroom and opened the bottom drawer of her dresser. Inside was a shoebox filled with letters, dozens of them, written but never sent. She pulled out the most recent one, dated 3 days ago. My dearest Louis, I know you're busy, I know you're working hard. I'm so proud of you, baby, but I miss you, I miss your voice. I miss knowing what you're thinking, what's making you laugh, what's keeping you up at night. I saw you on television last week after your race. You looked tired. Are you eating enough? Are you getting rest? I know these are mother questions you probably don't want to answer, but I can't help asking them, even if only to this paper. I love you more than all the stars, even when you forget to call. Mom. Carmen folded the letter and placed it back in the box with all the others. Letters full of loneliness, letters full of love, letters that would never be sent because she refused to make her son feel guilty for chasing his dreams. Summer 2003. The phone finally rang on a Tuesday evening. Carmen grabbed it before the second ring. Mum, hi. Louis's voice sounded deeper, older. When had that happened? Louis, baby, how are you? Carmen hated how desperate she sounded, but she couldn't help it. I'm good. Listen, I only have a few minutes before my strategy meeting, but I wanted to tell you I won last weekend. Did Dad tell you? No, I didn't know you had a race. Carmen's voice wavered. There was a time when she knew his entire schedule by heart. Oh, yeah, it was last minute. Anyway, I won. And Mum, there were scouts there from McLaren. They want to talk about their young driver program. That's wonderful, sweetheart. I'm so. Hold on, Mum. Muffled voices in the background. Louis's hand covered the phone. When he came back, his voice was rushed. Sorry, I have to go. They're starting the meeting early. Love you. I love you too. The line went dead. Carmen sat holding the phone for a long time. The conversation had lasted 90 seconds. She'd been waiting 3 weeks for 90 seconds. She should be happy. McLaren was interested. Her son was succeeding beyond anyone's wildest dreams. So why did she feel like she was drowning? Autumn 2003. Carmen worked the night shift at the hospital now. It paid slightly more and she needed the money less desperately than before. Louis had secured some small sponsorships. Anthony's financial burden had eased. Carmen's had too, marginally. But the night shifts meant she was awake when the rest of the world slept, including Louis. She tried calling him a few times, but he was always training or in meetings or traveling. She left voicemails. Sometimes he called back days later. Sometimes he didn't. One night during her 2 a.m. break, Carmen sat in the hospital cafeteria with Marcia, who'd moved to night shift too. How's Louis? Marcia asked, stirring sugar into her tea. Good, great actually, he's winning everything. Carmen tried to smile. When did you last see him? Carmen had to think. Easter, no wait, it was February half-term. He came for a weekend. Carmen, it's October. He's busy. He's 15. Busy doesn't mean he should go 8 months without seeing his mother. It's different with racing. The schedule is. Stop making excuses for him, Marcia said gently. I know you love him, but love doesn't mean accepting crumbs. Carmen's eyes stung. What am I supposed to do? Demand he visit, make him feel guilty. I spent years sacrificing everything so he could have this life. I can't turn around now and make him choose between his dreams and me. Why can't it be both? Because it never works that way. Success requires sacrifice. I knew that from the beginning. But Carmen, Marcia reached across the table, taking her friend's hand. You weren't supposed to be the sacrifice. Christmas 2003. Louis came home for 3 days. 3 days and 12 months. He was taller now, his face losing its boyish softness. He talked about racing strategies and tire compounds and things Carmen didn't fully understand. He was polite, affectionate even. He hugged her, told her he loved her. But there was a distance, an invisible wall between them that hadn't existed before. On Christmas morning, Louis gave her a beautiful cashmere scarf, expensive, elegant, probably chosen by Anthony's girlfriend. Carmen gave him a photo album she'd spent months creating. Every race photo she could find, every newspaper clipping, every award. So you can remember where you came from, she said softly. Louis flipped through it, smiling. This is brilliant, Mum, thank you. He set it aside and returned to his phone, texting with friends. Carmen watched him, this stranger who looked like her son but felt like someone she was just beginning to lose. That night after Louis went to bed, Carmen sat in her kitchen writing another unsent letter. Dear Louis, You were here today sitting 3 feet from me, but I missed you more than when you're away. Is that possible, to miss someone who's right in front of you? You're becoming everything we dreamed. I should be happy. I'm happy. So why does it feel like I'm losing you? Why does success taste so much like goodbye? She didn't sign it. She just folded it and added it to the box with all the others. Letters full of a love that was slowly, quietly breaking her heart. Sao Paulo, Brazil, November 2, 2008. The television screen in Carmen's living room showed the Interlagos circuit in brilliant high definition. The Brazilian Grand Prix, the final race of the season. Everything came down to this. Lewis Hamilton, 23 years old, needed to finish 5th or better to become Formula One world champion, the youngest champion in history. Carmen sat alone on her sofa, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles had gone white. The apartment was silent except for the commentator's voice rising and falling with the drama unfolding 7,000 miles away. She'd wanted to be there. God, how she'd wanted to be there. But the flight cost £1,000, £200. The hotel another £800. Race tickets, food, transportation, easily £3,000 total. Money she didn't have. Money she couldn't justify spending even though this was the biggest moment of Lewis's life. Anthony was there. Lewis's brother Nicholas was there. The McLaren team, the sponsors, the celebrities, everyone who mattered was there, except his mother. "Come on, baby," Carmen whispered to the screen. "You can do this." The rain was falling in Brazil, making the track treacherous. Lewis was in 4th position, but the driver behind him was pushing hard. The championship could slip away in one mistake, one slide, one moment of bad luck. Carmen's heart hammered against her ribs. Her breath came in short gasps. This was worse than any race she'd ever watched. The final laps felt like hours. The commentators' voices grew frantic. The tension was unbearable. And then, impossibly, miraculously, Lewis crossed the finish line in 5th position. "He's done it," the commentator screamed. "Lewis Hamilton is world champion." Carmen jumped to her feet, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, yes, baby, you did it." The television showed Lewis in his car, screaming with joy. Then climbing out, surrounded by his team, champagne spraying, everyone crying and laughing and celebrating. Carmen watched through blurring tears as camera after camera captured her son's triumph. The youngest world champion ever, a kid from Stevenage who defied every odd. Her son, her beautiful, brilliant son. The broadcast showed Anthony hugging Lewis, both of them sobbing. It showed Nicholas lifting his brother off the ground. It showed the McLaren team boss embracing Lewis like a father. Carmen watched it all from 7,000 miles away, alone in her living room, crying tears of joy and heartbreak so mixed together she couldn't tell them apart. Her phone rang. She grabbed it with shaking hands. "Mum," Lewis's voice was barely audible over the chaos in the background. "Mum, I did it. I'm world champion." "I know, baby. I watched every second. I'm so proud of you." Carmen was laughing and crying simultaneously. "I wish you were here. I wish." Someone shouted Lewis's name. "Mum, I have to go, press conference, but I'll call you later, okay? I love you." "I love you more than." The line went dead. Probably the signal, probably the chaos. But Carmen stood holding the silent phone, her celebration cut short. She looked at the television. They were replaying Lewis's victory, showing his face, his tears, his joy. She paused the image, freezing her son in his moment of absolute triumph. And she realized something that made her chest feel hollow. She was watching the biggest moment of her son's life the same way millions of strangers were watching it, on television, from a distance. Disconnected. She'd sacrificed everything for this moment. Years of her life, her health, her savings, her time, her relationship with her son. And now that the moment had arrived, she wasn't part of it. She was an observer, a viewer, someone on the outside looking in. Later that night, Lewis called again at 2 a.m. London time. Carmen had been lying awake, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep despite her exhaustion. "Mum, sorry it's late. The celebration's just finished." "Don't apologize, tell me everything." Carmen sat up, switching on her bedside lamp. Lewis talked for 20 minutes about the race, the final laps, the moment he realized he'd won. His voice was hoarse from screaming, thick with emotion. Carmen drank in every word, memorizing his joy. "I kept thinking about you during those last laps," Lewis said quietly. "About everything you did to get me here, the jobs you worked, the sacrifices you made." "Lewis, don't." "No, let me say this. I know what you did, Mum. I'm not a kid anymore. I know you sold grandma's necklace. I know you worked 3 jobs. I know you went without things so I could have things. I know." Carmen's throat closed. "You were worth it. I wish you'd been here today. I looked for you in the crowd. I know that's stupid. I knew you couldn't come, but I still looked." "I was there," Carmen whispered. "Maybe not in body, but in every other way. Every lap you drove, I was right there with you." "It's not the same though, is it?" Lewis's voice cracked. "You should have been here. You deserve to be here more than anyone." "I was exactly where I needed to be, watching you achieve your dream." They talked for another 10 minutes before Lewis had to go. More celebrations, more obligations. After they hung up, Carmen sat in the dark, Lewis's words echoing. "I looked for you in the crowd." Her son had won the world championship and he'd spent part of that moment looking for her, wishing she was there. Carmen pulled out her shoebox of unsent letters. She wrote another one by lamplight. "My darling Lewis, tonight you became world champion. Tonight you achieved everything we dreamed of when you were 7 years old, racing toy cars around cardboard tracks. I should feel complete. This is what all the sacrifice was for, wasn't it? This moment, this achievement, but I feel empty. And I don't know if that makes me selfish or honest. You looked for me in the crowd. You told me that. And my heart broke because I wasn't there. Not because I didn't want to be, but because somewhere along this journey I became the person who watches your life from a distance instead of being in it. When did that happen? When did I become optional instead of essential? I'm proud of you, so impossibly proud, but I miss you. I miss being your mom in ways that matter more than money or sacrifice. Is it wrong to feel sad on the happiest day of your life? I love you more than all the stars, baby, even when those stars feel very far away." She folded the letter, added it to the box, and turned off the light. The next morning, Carmen's phone buzzed with notifications, hundreds of them. Lewis was on every news site, every sports page, every social media platform. Lewis Hamilton makes history. Click through the photos from Brazil. There was Lewis on the podium, Lewis spraying champagne, Lewis with his trophy, Lewis surrounded by his team. In one photo, Lewis stood alone for just a moment looking at his phone. Carmen stared at that image for a long time. Was he texting her, calling her, or was she just desperately wanting to believe she was on his mind? She saved the photo and made it her phone's wallpaper. Her son, the world champion in his moment of glory, a moment she'd made possible. A moment she'd watched from 7,000 miles away. A moment that felt both like the greatest victory and the deepest loss of her life. Stevenage, England, 3 weeks before the BBC interview. Carmen was folding laundry when her phone rang. The number showed private caller. She almost didn't answer. Telemarketers usually called around this time, but something made her pick up. "Hello." "Carmen, it's David. David Marshall, Anthony's brother." Carmen's hands stilled on the towel she was folding. David never called her directly. "David, is everything all right? Is Lewis?" "Lewis is fine. He's in Monaco, but Carmen, I need to talk to you about something serious." His voice was careful, measured. "Are you sitting down?" Carmen's legs suddenly felt weak. She sat on the edge of her bed. "What is it?" "I don't know how to say this gently, so I'm just going to say it. Carmen, when's the last time you saw a doctor?" The question caught her off guard. I work at a hospital, David. I see doctors every day." "That's not what I meant. When's the last time you had a checkup, a real one?" Carmen's mind raced. "I don't know, a year, maybe 2. Why are you asking me this?" David took a deep breath. "Anthony's worried about you. He says you look exhausted every time he sees you, that you've lost weight, that you're working too hard." "I'm fine." "Carmen, please just humor me. Go see a doctor, get a full checkup. Anthony will pay for it if money's the issue." "I don't need Anthony's money," Carmen said sharply. Then softer, "But I'll make an appointment if it'll make everyone stop worrying." After they hung up, Carmen looked at herself in the bedroom mirror. When had she started looking so tired? The dark circles under her eyes had become permanent. Her uniform hung looser than it used to. Her hair had more gray than brown now. She was 58 years old and looked 70. Maybe David has a point, she thought. 1 week later, doctor's office. Dr. Patel had been Carmen's GP for 15 years. She knew Carmen's medical history, knew about her demanding work schedule, knew she was Lewis Hamilton's mother even though Carmen never brought it up. After the examination, after the blood tests and the ECG, Dr. Patel sat across from Carmen with a folder full of results. "Carmen, I'm going to be direct with you. Your heart is showing signs of stress cardiomyopathy. Do you know what that means?" Carmen nodded slowly. She was a nurse. She knew exactly what it meant. "My heart muscle is weakened." "Yes, caused by prolonged emotional and physical stress. Your blood pressure is dangerously high. You're anemic. You're showing early signs of exhaustion-related organ stress." Dr. Patel leaned forward. "Carmen, your body is trying to tell you something. You need to slow down." "I can't slow down. I have bills, I have work." "You have a heart condition that could kill you if you don't take it seriously." Dr. Patel's voice was firm but kind. "I'm prescribing medication, but medicine alone won't fix this. You need rest, real rest. You need to reduce your stress levels dramatically." Carmen stared at the prescription in her hands. "How long have I had this?" "Hard to say. Months, maybe longer. These conditions develop slowly, silently. That's what makes them dangerous." Outside the doctor's office, Carmen sat in her car for a long time, staring at nothing. A heart condition, caused by stress. She thought about the 20 years of working multiple jobs, the sleepless nights worrying about money, the loneliness of watching Lewis's life from a distance, the unsent letter, the missed calls, the ache that had become so constant she'd stopped noticing it was there. Her body was keeping score of every sacrifice she pretended didn't hurt. She pulled out her phone to call Lewis, then stopped. What would she say? "Hi baby, remember all those sacrifices I made? Turns out they're killing me now." No, she couldn't do that to him, couldn't make him feel guilty for living the life she'd helped him build. She put the phone away and drove home in silence. 2 weeks later, Carmen was making tea when her phone rang. Lewis. Her heart lifted. He'd been calling more frequently lately, even if the conversations were still brief. "Hi baby, how are you?" "Mum, I'm coming home next week. Just for a few days, I want to see you." Lewis's voice sounded strange, determined. "That would be wonderful. What's the occasion?" "Do I need an occasion to visit my mother?" He was trying to sound light, but Carmen heard something underneath. "Lewis, what's going on?" Silence. Then, "Dad told me you saw a doctor. He told me about your heart." Carmen closed her eyes. Of course, Anthony had told him. "It's nothing serious, baby. Just need to take some medication and—" "Don't lie to me, Mum, please." Lewis's voice cracked. "Dad said it's from stress, from years of stress." "Lewis, this isn't your fault." "Then whose fault is it?" Lewis's words came out harsh, angry, but Carmen could hear he was angry at himself, not her. "You worked yourself sick for my racing career. That's the truth, isn't it?" "No, I made choices, my choices. You were a child, none of this is on you." "I'm not a child anymore, and I can see clearly now what I was too young to see then. You destroyed your health for me. You sacrificed everything. And what did I do? I stopped calling. I got too busy. I let years go by barely seeing you." Carmen's eyes filled with tears. "You were chasing your dreams. That's what you were supposed to do." "At what cost, Mum? At what cost?" Lewis's voice broke completely. "I have 7 world championships. I have more money than I can spend in 10 lifetimes. I have fame, success, everything. But I don't have enough time with you. And now you're telling me that even the time you had was spent destroying your health for me." "Lewis, stop, please stop." "I can't stop, because I just realized something. I've been so focused on making you proud, on proving your sacrifices were worth it, that I forgot what you actually needed. Not another trophy, not another championship, just me. Just your son, calling more than once a month, visiting more than twice a year, actually being present in your life instead of just sending money and thinking that's enough." Carmen was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. "I'm coming home," Lewis said quietly, "and we're going to talk, really talk, about everything. Is that okay?" "Yes, baby, that's more than okay." After they hung up, Carmen sat at her kitchen table holding her cup of tea with shaking hands. The conversation she'd been avoiding for years was finally coming. Part of her was terrified, but another part, the part that had been slowly breaking for 2 decades, felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Maybe it wasn't too late. Maybe they could find their way back to each other. Maybe her son was finally ready to understand what she'd been too proud to say. I don't need your success, I just need you. Stevenage, England, 5 days before the BBC interview. Lewis arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, driving himself instead of being chauffeured. Carmen watched from her window as he parked his car, a modest Audi, not one of his supercars, and sat there for a moment before getting out. When she opened the door, they stood looking at each other for a long moment. He seemed older somehow, more serious. The boyish smile was replaced by something deeper, more weighted. "Hi, Mum," he said softly. "Hi, baby." They embraced on the doorstep, and Carmen felt Lewis hold her tighter than he had in years. When he pulled back, his eyes were red. "You're too thin," he said. "So are you. Race weight." Stop deflecting, but he smiled slightly. "Can I come in?" They sat at her small kitchen table, the same table where 7-year-old Lewis had once promised to buy her a house with a garden. Carmen made tea, her hands trembling slightly as she poured. "I found something last night," Lewis said, pulling out his phone. "Remember when I was 10 and Dad took me karting for the first time? Of course, you came home so excited you couldn't sleep." Lewis showed her a photo on his phone, a young Carmen standing behind a fence at a karting track, camera in hand, watching from a distance. Carmen's breath caught. "Where did you get that?" "Dad had it. He took it without you knowing. He said you did that a lot, showed up to my races but stayed hidden so I wouldn't feel bad that you couldn't afford proper tickets." Lewis's voice was thick. "Mum, why didn't you tell me? You were racing. You needed to focus, not worry about me." "I should have been worrying about you. You were my mother, working yourself to death, and I had no idea." Lewis put his phone down, running his hands through his hair. "Do you know what else Dad told me? About Grandma's necklace. About you working night shifts and cleaning offices. About you missing meals so I could have new racing equipment." "Lewis, please." "No, let me finish." He looked at her with eyes full of pain. "I've spent the last week going through old calendars, old schedules, trying to remember how often I called you, visited you. Do you want to know what I found? In 2015, I saw you exactly 4 times. 4 times, Mum, in an entire year." Carmen reached for his hand. "You were fighting for the championship." "I fought for 5 championships while barely seeing you, and I kept telling myself it was okay, that you understood, that you were proud. But I never asked what it was costing you. I never noticed that you were fading away while I was shining brighter." Tears rolled down Carmen's cheeks. "I was proud, I am proud. But you were also lonely, and tired, and breaking." Lewis squeezed her hand. "I read about stress cardiomyopathy, Mum. It's called broken heart syndrome for a reason. Your heart literally broke from emotional stress." The words hung between them, heavy and true. "I need to make this right," Lewis said. "I don't know how yet, but I need to try, which is why I want you to do something with me." "What?" "The BBC asked me to do an interview at Silverstone before the British Grand Prix. A special segment about my career, my legacy." Lewis paused. "I want you there with me, not in the audience, not watching from home, with me on camera as part of it." Carmen shook her head. "Lewis, I'm not good on camera, I'm just..." "You're the reason I have a career to talk about. You're the real story, Mum, not me." Lewis leaned forward. "Please, I need the world to see you, to know you, and honestly, I need to sit next to you and tell people how extraordinary you are. I need to start making this right." "Making what right?" 20 years of taking you for granted." His voice broke. "Please, Mum, come with me. Let me show everyone who you really are." Carmen looked at her son, this man who had once been her little boy with toy racing cars. She saw in his eyes something she hadn't seen in years. Not the champion, not the celebrity, but simply Lewis. Her Lewis, wanting to reconnect, wanting to try. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll do it." Lewis closed his eyes in relief. "Thank you." Neither of them knew what would happen at that interview. Neither knew that Carmen's carefully maintained composure would shatter on live television. Neither knew that millions would watch her break open. They only knew that they were trying. After years of distance, they were reaching for each other again. And sometimes, trying is where healing begins. Silverstone Circuit, the day of the BBC interview. Carmen's hands trembled as the makeup artist applied powder to her face. The backstage area buzzed with activity, producers checking equipment, assistants rushing past with clipboards, camera operators testing angles. "You're going to be wonderful," the makeup artist said kindly, noticing Carmen's nervousness. "Just be yourself." That's what I'm afraid of, Carmen thought. Being herself meant being vulnerable, and she'd spent 20 years being strong. Louis appeared in the doorway, already dressed in his McLaren team jacket. "Mum, you look beautiful." "I look terrified." "You look perfect." He came in and took her hand. "Remember, this is just a conversation. Rebecca's lovely. She'll ask some questions about my career, we'll chat, and that's it. Nothing scary." What Louis didn't know was that the producers had their own plan. They'd spent 3 weeks interviewing people Carmen had helped over the years, patients, neighbors, church members. They'd compiled a tribute video designed to celebrate her, not just as Louis Hamilton's mother, but as Carmen Hamilton, a woman who'd quietly changed lives. It was meant to be a beautiful surprise. Nobody anticipated what it would trigger. The studio lights were blinding. Carmen sat in the guest chair, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. The live audience, about 100 people, applauded as Rebecca Chen introduced them. "Today, we have something special," Rebecca said warmly. "Before we talk with Louis Hamilton about his incredible career, we want to celebrate someone who made it all possible. Carmen Hamilton, welcome." "Thank you for having me." Carmen's voice was steady despite her nerves. "Carmen, before Louis joins us, we've gathered some messages from people who wanted to say something about you. Would you like to see them?" Carmen nodded, not trusting her voice. The screens lit up with the first video. A woman in her 60s appeared, tears in her eyes. "Mrs. Hamilton, you nursed my husband through his final weeks. You stayed past your shifts. You held my hand when I couldn't stop crying. You made the worst time of my life bearable. I never got to thank you properly. So thank you. Thank you for your kindness." Carmen's breath hitched. She barely remembered the woman, but the memory of those difficult days came flooding back. More faces appeared. A young man who said Carmen had mentored him through nursing school. A neighbor who remembered Carmen bringing meals when her family had nothing. A patient who said Carmen's gentle care had made him want to live again. One after another, people testified to Carmen's quiet acts of love. The studio audience was wiping their eyes. Carmen sat frozen, overwhelmed by seeing herself through others' eyes. She'd never thought of herself as special. She just did what needed doing. "Carmen," Rebecca said gently, "I think it's safe to say that Britain is getting to meet an extraordinary woman today. Not just Louis Hamilton's mother, but Carmen Hamilton, a person who spent her life caring for others." Carmen managed a smile, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "I don't know what to say, I was doing my job, being a nurse, being a neighbor. It's what you're supposed to do. But you did it while raising a son who would become a world champion. You did it while working multiple jobs. You did it while sacrificing so much." Rebecca paused. "Louis is about to join us, but before he does, I have one more question for you." Carmen nodded, trying to compose herself. Rebecca's voice was warm, curious, completely unaware of what she was about to unleash. "Carmen, Louis has accomplished everything in racing. 7 world championships, over 100 wins. He's secured his legacy. He's achieved every dream. So tell me, what's the one dream you still have for him? What's the one thing left that would make your heart completely full?" The question was innocent, well-meaning. The kind of question interviewers ask to get a sweet, heartwarming answer. But for Carmen, it was the question that broke the dam, because the truth was too big to contain anymore. The truth was that she was terrified. Terrified that Louis would race for 10 more years and she wouldn't live to see it. Terrified that her heart condition would worsen and he'd blame himself. Terrified that they'd spend the rest of her life in this pattern. Him achieving, her watching from a distance, both of them pretending it was enough. The truth was that her one dream wasn't about racing at all. Her one dream was impossible to say on television without sounding selfish, without making Louis feel guilty, without revealing how deeply lonely she'd been, how her broken heart syndrome wasn't just medical terminology but literal truth. All of this crashed through Carmen in the space of 3 seconds. She opened her mouth to give a diplomatic answer, to say something about hoping Louis stays healthy and finds happiness, to say what mothers are supposed to say, selfless, supportive things, but her body betrayed her. A sob broke from her throat, raw, involuntary, coming from somewhere so deep she couldn't control it. Her hands flew to her face. Her shoulders began to shake. 20 years of unsent letters. 20 years of watching phones that didn't ring enough. 20 years of being proud and lonely in equal measure. 20 years of sacrificing and smiling and pretending the distance didn't devastate her. It all came pouring out. The studio went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. 8 million viewers leaned toward their televisions. Carmen tried to speak, but only broken sounds came out. She couldn't stop, couldn't pull herself together. The tears were 20 years overdue and they wouldn't be denied. Rebecca looked stricken. "Mrs. Hamilton, I'm so sorry. We can take a break." I can't," Carmen gasped between sobs. She was mortified, breaking down on live television, but she couldn't stop. I just. The audience sat frozen, witnessing something too raw, too real for scripted television. Rebecca reached for Carmen's hand, her own eyes filling with tears. "It's okay. Take your time. We're here. You're safe." But Carmen wasn't okay, because she just realized what she was about to say, what had almost come out before the sobs stopped her. "I just want my son back before I die." That was the truth. Not more championships, not more success, just him, just time. Just the simple, ordinary gift of having her son present in her life before her broken heart gave out completely. She'd nearly said it, nearly exposed her deepest fear, her most desperate need, her complete exhaustion from pretending to be fine. In the control room, producers were frantically deciding whether to cut to commercial. The director was shouting contradictory orders. This was live television in crisis. But then something happened that no one had planned. From backstage, Lewis Hamilton heard his mother cry. Not polite tears, not graceful emotion, but the sound of a person breaking. He'd been waiting for his cue, listening through his headset, excited to surprise her by coming out early. But when he heard that sound, the sound of his mother's heart shattering on live television, every other consideration vanished. The entrance timing, the carefully planned segment, the professional production, none of it mattered. Lewis ripped off his headset and ran. The stage manager tried to stop him. "Mr. Hamilton, you're not cued yet." Lewis pushed past without a word. His footsteps echoed across the studio floor. The audience gasped as they saw him, not making his planned entrance but sprinting desperately toward the woman sobbing in the guest chair. Carmen looked up through her tears and saw him coming. Their eyes locked. And in that moment, live on BBC television with 8 million people watching, something profound was about to happen, something that would change both their lives forever. Lewis crossed the studio floor in seconds that felt like slow motion. The cameras tracked his movement instinctively. The audience held its collective breath. Rebecca Chen stepped back, giving them space. He dropped to his knees beside his mother's chair, taking her trembling hands in his. "Mum," he said softly. Just that one word, but it carried everything: apology, love, presence, commitment. Carmen couldn't speak. She could only look at him through tears, her carefully constructed composure completely shattered. Lewis pulled her hands to his chest, letting her feel his heartbeat. "I'm here, Mum. I'm right here." The simple words broke something else open in Carmen. She leaned forward and Lewis wrapped his arms around her, holding her while she sobbed against his shoulder. He rocked her gently, the way she used to rock him when he had nightmares as a child. The reversal was complete. The mother who'd spent 20 years being strong was finally allowed to break. The son who'd spent 20 years being absent was finally, truly present. Lewis stroked her hair, whispering things meant only for her ears. But the microphone on his collar caught fragments. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. You're right here and I've been everywhere else. I see you now, I finally see you." Carmen's sobs gradually softened into hiccuping breaths. Lewis didn't rush her. He just held her, ignoring the cameras, the audience, the millions watching. In that moment, they were the only two people in the world. Finally, Carmen pulled back slightly, her hands cupping Lewis's face. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I ruined your interview." "You didn't ruin anything." Lewis's own eyes were red and wet. "You finally told the truth we've both been avoiding for years." Rebecca Chen, tears streaming down her own face, quietly asked, "Should we stop filming?" Lewis looked directly into the camera, still holding his mother, still on his knees before her. "No, don't stop." He turned back to Carmen, speaking to her but knowing the world was listening. "Mum, do you know what I realized this week? I've spent my entire adult life trying to prove I was worth your sacrifices. Every championship, every win, every record, I thought I was paying you back, making it all worthwhile, showing you that your sacrifices weren't wasted. Carmen shook her head. Lewis, you don't owe me. Let me finish, please. He squeezed her hands. I thought success was how I showed love. If I won enough, earned enough, achieved enough, then you'd know it was all worth it. But I was wrong. I was so wrong. His voice cracked, but he continued. What you needed wasn't proof. You didn't need another trophy with your name in the dedication. You needed me, just me, calling you more than once a month, visiting you more than twice a year, actually being present in your life instead of just sending money and thinking that's enough. The audience was openly weeping now. Camera operators wiped their eyes while trying to keep their shots steady. I looked at my calendar from last year, Lewis said. Do you know how many days I spent with you? 14. 14 days out of 365. I saw you less than I saw my trainer, my manager, my PR team. I spent more time in sponsor meetings than with my own mother. You were working, Carmen tried to interject. I was hiding, Lewis said firmly. Hiding behind work, behind obligations, behind the idea that success was more important than presence. But Dad told me something this week that broke me. He said you have stress cardiomyopathy. Do you know what that is? Carmen nodded silently. Tell them, Lewis said gently. Tell everyone what it means. Carmen's voice was barely a whisper. It's when your heart muscle weakens from emotional stress. Some people call it broken heart syndrome. The studio went silent. Lewis addressed the camera again, his voice thick with emotion. My mother has broken heart syndrome. Her heart is literally damaged from years of stress, years of sacrificing, years of being strong while I was being selfish, years of loving me more than I loved her back. That's not true, Carmen protested. It is true, Lewis's voice rose, passionate and anguished. I love you, Mum. I've always loved you, but I didn't love you well. I didn't show up. I took your strength for granted. I let years slip by telling myself next season will be different, or after this championship I'll have more time. But next season never came. The time never materialized. And meanwhile, your heart was breaking. He turned back to her, taking both her hands again. Rebecca asked what dream you still have for me, and you couldn't answer because the real answer is too painful to say on television, isn't it? Carmen's tears started fresh. Lewis, please. The real answer is that you just want me. Not me the champion, not me the celebrity, just me, your son, actually being part of your life, calling without an agenda, visiting without it being an obligation, being present instead of always promising to be present later. Carmen covered her mouth with her hand, nodding through her tears. That's what you were trying to say, wasn't it? Before you broke down, Lewis's voice was infinitely gentle. You just want your son back before it's too late. The words hung in the air. The truth Carmen had been too proud, too selfless, too protective to ever speak aloud. Yes, she whispered. Yes, that's what I want. Lewis pulled her into his arms again, holding her fiercely. Then that's what you're going to get. Because I'm done, Mum. I'm done racing. Carmen jerked back. What? The audience gasped. Rebecca's eyes widened. In the control room, producers started shouting. This wasn't in the script. This was Lewis Hamilton announcing his retirement on live television without warning. I'm retiring from Formula One, Lewis said clearly, looking at his mother. Effective immediately. This weekend's British Grand Prix will be my last race. No, Carmen shook her head frantically. Lewis, you can't quit because of me. You love racing. I love you more. The words were simple, absolute. Mum, I'm 39 years old. I've won 7 world championships. I've broken records I never dreamed possible. I've lived a life most people can't imagine. And none of it means anything compared to you. But your career. My career was your dream for me, remember. When I was 7 years old racing toy cars, you're the one who believed first. You're the one who sacrificed everything. And I achieved it. We achieved it together. But now I have a different dream. What dream? Lewis smiled through his tears. I want to be the son you deserved, not just the champion everyone else wanted. I want to have breakfast with you on Tuesdays. I want to go grocery shopping together. I want to watch terrible television shows and do absolutely nothing important. I want ordinary, boring, gloriously normal time with you." He squeezed her hands. "Rebecca asked what your dream for me was. Well, I'm telling you my dream for us. My dream is to spend whatever time you have left, whether it's 5 years or 50, actually being present. Not calling from Monaco saying I'll visit soon. Not sending money instead of showing up. Just being here, being your son, the way I should have been all along." Carmen was sobbing again, but these tears were different. Not tears of heartbreak, but tears of relief, of hope, of something precious being restored. "You don't have to do this," she whispered. "Yes, I do, not because I owe you, not out of guilt, but because I want to, because I finally understand what actually matters." Louis looked into his mother's eyes. "You taught me that love means sacrifice. You showed me that every day for 20 years. You sacrificed your time, your health, your dreams, all for me." "That was different." "No, it wasn't. Love means sacrifice. And now it's my turn. I'm sacrificing trophies for time. I'm sacrificing legacy for love. I'm choosing you, Mom. Finally, completely, I'm choosing you." The studio erupted in applause, thunderous, emotional, sustained. But Louis and Carmen barely heard it. They were holding each other, both crying, both healing, both finally together in a way they hadn't been in 20 years. When the applause finally died down, Rebecca approached carefully. "Louis, that's an incredible decision. But are you sure? This is very sudden." "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." Rebecca Chen had conducted hundreds of interviews in her 20-year career. She'd spoken with presidents and celebrities, athletes and artists, but she'd never witnessed anything like this. A sports icon announcing his retirement on live television, on his knees, holding his mother while millions watched. She composed herself, wiping her eyes. "Louis, this is enormous news. The racing world will be shocked. Can you tell us what this means? What happens now?" Louis stood, helping Carmen to her feet but keeping his arm around her shoulders. He wasn't letting go, not anymore. "What happens now is simple," Louis said, his voice steady despite the emotion. "I race one final time this weekend at Silverstone, my home track, in front of my home crowd, and then I walk away." "Just like that?" Rebecca asked. "No farewell tour, no final season?" "No, because if I plan a farewell season, I'll find excuses to do one more after that. One more championship attempt, one more record to break. I know myself. I'll always find a reason to delay." Louis looked at Carmen. "And my mother doesn't have time for me to delay. None of us do. We pretend we have forever, but we don't." The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. "For 20 years, I've been telling myself I'll make more time next year. But next year never comes. It's always next year, always later, always after one more race. Well, I'm done with later. I'm done with next year. I want now. I want today. I want whatever time we have left." Carmen tried to protest again. "Louis, I don't want to be the reason you give up racing. People will say." "Let them say whatever they want." Louis turned to face her fully. "Mum, you're not the reason I'm stopping. You're the reason I'm starting. Starting the life I should have been living. Starting to be present instead of always absent. Starting to understand what actually makes a life meaningful." He addressed the camera again. "Everyone watching this, you need to understand something. My mother spent 20 years sacrificing for me. She worked 3 jobs. She sold her mother's jewelry. She lived in tiny apartments and went without meals so I could have racing equipment. She watched my races from behind fences because she couldn't afford proper tickets. She did all of this without complaint, without asking for anything back, without ever making me feel guilty." Louis's voice grew more passionate. "And what did I do? I got successful and forgot her. Oh, I sent money, I bought her a nice house, I paid her bills, but I didn't give her what she actually wanted me. My time, my presence, my phone calls that weren't rushed, my visits that weren't squeezed between sponsor obligations." Carmen squeezed his hand, but he continued. "Do you know what the worst part is? She developed a heart condition from stress, from years of emotional strain that I was too self-absorbed to notice. Her heart is literally broken, and I'm partly responsible for that. Not intentionally, I didn't set out to hurt her, but intent doesn't matter when the result is the same." "Louis, that's not fair to yourself," Rebecca started. "It's completely fair. I need to own this. I need to be honest about what success cost, not just what it cost me, but what it cost the people who loved me. Louis looked at Carmen again. Mom, you asked me once if all your sacrifices were worth it. Remember, I was 10 years old crying after a bad race. Carmen nodded, tears streaming down her face. You told me I was enough, that the racing was extra, that I was your dream come true. Louis's voice cracked. Well, I'm telling you the same thing now. You are enough. You've always been enough. And I'm so sorry it took me 20 years and your heart breaking to finally understand that. The studio erupted in applause again, but Louis raised his hand, asking for silence. I have more to say. Rebecca, you asked what happens now. Let me tell you exactly what's going to happen. He pulled out his phone, opening his calendar. I've cleared my schedule for the next year, completely cleared it. No endorsements, no sponsor appearances, no commitments beyond this final race. For a whole year, Rebecca asked, astonished. For however long it takes, but yes, minimum 1 year, Louis looked at Carmen. Mom and I are going to do all the things we never had time for, museums, long walks, day trips to the seaside, cooking together even though I'm terrible at it, sitting on the couch watching television and doing absolutely nothing productive. Carmen laughed through her tears. That sounds like heaven. It does, doesn't it? Because that's what I finally realized. Heaven isn't another trophy. It's not breaking another record. Heaven is ordinary time with people you love. Heaven is being present for the small moments that actually make up a life. Louis turned back to the camera. I'm all starting a foundation in my mother's name. The Carmen Hamilton Foundation will help single parents support their children's dreams, not just financially, but emotionally. We'll provide counseling, support groups, resources to help parents and children stay connected even when pursuing ambitious goals. Carmen's hand flew to her mouth. Louis, you don't have to. I want to, because what happened to us, this distance, this disconnect, it shouldn't happen to anyone else. Kids should chase their dreams without losing their parents. Parents should support their kids without sacrificing their own well-being. It's possible to have both. We just didn't know how. Rebecca was openly crying now. Louis, this is beautiful, but I have to ask, do you have any regrets about retiring? You could race for several more years. You could win more championships. Louis considered the question carefully. If you'd asked me that question a month ago, I would have said no, I can't retire yet. I have more to accomplish, more to prove. But now, he looked at Carmen. My only regret is that I didn't do this sooner. You don't miss it already, Rebecca pressed. Miss what? The travel, the pressure, the constant performance, Louis shook his head. The only thing about racing I'll miss is the driving itself, that pure moment of man and machine. But I can still drive. I can do track days. I can enjoy cars without the weight of championships and expectations. He paused, then continued. People think success is about winning, but real success is about knowing when you've won enough, when to stop chasing and start living, when to recognize that the best trophy isn't on a shelf, it's sitting right here beside me. The audience rose to their feet, applauding. Carmen buried her face in Louis's shoulder, overwhelmed by emotion. He held her, letting the moment wash over them both. Rebecca waited for the applause to die down. Carmen, how do you feel about all this? Carmen lifted her head, wiping her eyes. Terrified, she admitted. Terrified that Louis will regret this decision. Terrified that people will blame me. But also, she looked at her son. Also hopeful. For the first time in years, I feel hopeful that I'll actually get to know my son again. Not Louis Hamilton the champion, but Louis, my baby, my boy. I never stopped being your boy, Mum, Louis said softly. I just forgot how to show it. Rebecca smiled through her tears. This has been the most extraordinary interview of my career. Is there anything else you want to say? Anything you want the world to know? Louis thought for a moment, then nodded. Yes, to everyone watching, don't wait. Don't wait until someone's heart breaks to show up for them. Don't wait until you've achieved enough to spend time with people you love. Don't wait until it's almost too late to realize what actually matters. He squeezed Carmen's hand. Call your mother, visit your father. Spend time with people who loved you before you were successful, who will love you if you lose everything tomorrow. Because those people, they're the real victory. Everything else is just noise. Carmen leaned her head on Louis's shoulder. I'm so proud of you, baby. Not because you're retiring, not because of any of this. I'm proud because you're finally being honest, with yourself, with me, with the world. I learned from the best, Louis said. You were always honest with your love. I just wasn't paying attention. Rebecca addressed the camera. Well, Britton, you came here today expecting a sports interview. Instead, you witnessed something far more important, a family finding their way back to each other. Lewis Hamilton, Carmen Hamilton, thank you for sharing this moment with us. As the cameras pulled back for the final shot, Louis and Carmen remained close, foreheads touching, whispering to each other. The microphones didn't catch what they said. Some moments were meant to be private, but viewers at home could see the truth clearly. After 20 years of distance, a mother and son had finally found their way home to each other, and that was worth more than all the championships in the world. Carmen's garden, Stevenage, 1 year later. The garden was exactly as 7-year-old Louis had once promised, full of flowers, with a small patio and comfortable chairs. Carmen sat in one of those chairs now, a book forgotten in her lap, watching Louis struggle with the barbecue. I think you've conquered it, she called out, laughing as smoke billowed up. I have not conquered it, it's conquering me. Louis waved a spatula dramatically. How is it that I can drive a car at 200 miles per hour but I can't flip a burger without burning it? Different skill sets, baby. Louis grinned, abandoning the barbecue to sit beside her. Okay, I admit defeat. We're ordering pizza. Again, Carmen shook her head, but she was smiling. Again, he pulled out his phone. What do you want on it? Surprise me. As Louis placed the order, Carmen studied him. He looked different than he had a year ago, lighter somehow. The constant tension that had lived in his shoulders was gone. He smiled more easily, laughed more freely. He looked happy, truly happy. What? Louis caught her staring. Just looking at you, you've gained weight. I've gained 12 pounds, Louis said proudly. Turns out when you're not training 6 hours a day and you eat actual meals with your mother who cooks with too much love, you gain weight. Too much love, Carmen pretended to be offended. The perfect amount of love, which translates to extra pounds. Louis patted his stomach. Worth it. Carmen's phone buzzed. A text from Marcia. Saw the foundation announcement. 500 families helped already. You're changing lives, Carmen. The Carmen Hamilton Foundation had exceeded all expectations. In 1 year, they provided support to 500 single-parent families, helping them pursue their children's dreams while maintaining family connections. They'd established counseling programs, financial planning services, and most importantly, regular family retreats where parents and children could reconnect. What's that smile about? Louis asked. Marcia, she's proud of the foundation. So am I. Louis reached over and took her hand. So is everyone. You know the BBC wants to do a follow-up interview, see how we're doing. Are we doing it? Only if you want to, no pressure. Carmen considered. A year ago, the thought of being on television again would have terrified her. But now, let's do it. I think people might want to know that this crazy decision actually worked. It worked better than worked, Louis said. Mom, do you know what today is? Tuesday. It's the 365th consecutive day we've spent time together. 1 full year without a single day apart. Carmen's eyes filled with tears. Louis, you counted. I've been counting every day, because every day matters now. Every single ordinary, beautiful day. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to birds in the garden, watching clouds drift across the sky. This was what they'd been missing, not grand gestures or expensive gifts, but simple presence. How's your heart? Louis asked quietly. Carmen smiled. Dr. Patel says it's improving. The medication helps, but she says the biggest factor is reduced stress and increased joy. Apparently, spending time with your son is excellent medicine. Best prescription ever. Louis squeezed her hand. You scared me, you know. When I found out about the cardiomyopathy, I kept thinking, what if I'd been too late? What if I'd waited 1 more year? But you weren't too late. You're here now. I'm here now, Louis repeated, and I'm not going anywhere. The doorbell rang. Pizza delivery. Louis jumped up to get it, and Carmen watched him go, this man who'd once been her little boy with impossible dreams. They'd achieved those dreams together, and now they were living a different dream, the dream of simply being together. Later that evening, they sat on the couch, half watching a terrible reality show, pizza boxes between them. Louis's phone buzzed constantly, messages from former teammates, sponsors, journalists. He ignored them all. "Don't you miss it sometimes?" Carmen asked. "The racing, the excitement." Louis thought about it honestly. "Sometimes I miss the driving, that feeling of perfect control, perfect speed. But then I remember what I was missing while I was doing it. And no, I don't regret leaving, not even a little bit. You could go back, if you wanted to." "I know, but I don't want to. I want this." He gestured around the small living room. "Terrible television, cold pizza, you stealing all the blankets." "I do not steal the blankets." "You absolutely do, but I forgive you." Carmen laughed, leaning against his shoulder. "You know what I realized today?" "What's that?" "I spent 20 years being proud of you. Proud of your championships, your records, your success. But I'm prouder of you now than I ever was before." Louis turned to look at her. "Why?" "Because anyone can win races if they have enough talent and determination. But it takes real courage to walk away, to choose love over legacy, to admit you were wrong and change direction." Carmen cupped his face. "You became a champion when you won your first race, but you became a man when you chose to come home." Louis's eyes glistened. "That might be the nicest thing you've ever said to me." "Then I haven't been saying enough nice things." Carmen smiled. "I love you, Louis. I'm so glad you're here." "I love you too, Mom. I'm so glad I'm here too." They returned to their terrible show, comfortable in the silence, comfortable in the presence, comfortable in the knowledge that they had time now. Time to talk, time to laugh, time to do absolutely nothing together, time to be mother and son, not champion and supporter, just Carmen and Louis exactly as they were meant to be. Final scene. As the sun set over the garden, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Carmen looked through the window at Louis's racing trophies visible in the corner of the room. 7 world championships, dozens of race wins, a legacy that would last forever, but they were just objects now. Beautiful memories of what was. The real trophy was here beside her on the couch, stealing her blanket, laughing at ridiculous television. Her son, finally, completely, wonderfully present. She'd spent 20 years helping him chase his dreams. Now finally they were living hers, and it was perfect. So now you know the truth behind that incredible moment. Carmen and Louis taught us that real success isn't about trophies, it's about the people we love. Now I want to hear from you. Where are you watching this from? Drop your country or city in the comments below. I love connecting with people from all around the world. If this story touched your heart like it touched millions of others, please hit that like button. It helps us spread these stories of kindness and love to more people who need to hear them. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss stories that remind us what truly matters in life. We're building a community that believes in love, family, and choosing people over achievements. There's another incredible story waiting for you on the screen right now. Click on it to watch what happens when kindness changes everything. Thank you for being here. Keep spreading kindness wherever you go.